Let's talk about the Orwellian nature of the social justice movement. Now, I know much ink and many podcasts have been dedicated just to this topic, but I found this article by Brian Kaplan, who's one of my favorite economists, and he has a way of just simply explaining everything, putting everything so neatly that you can't. It's almost impossible to argue against. And I just want to go over this article. It's pretty good. Now, at first, he goes into to see what I'm talking about. Picture North Korea and Chinese communism. So basically, he says, well, the social justice movement is Orwellian, but it hasn't done as much harm in America as of yet as some of the other horrible movements, like North Korean and Chinese communism, or the Russian nationalism. That is, authoritarian Russians should rule Russia with an iron hand and sadistically dominate neighboring countries, and do so with gusto. Now, although I would argue that the Russian Revolution, the Russian communist movement was like a social justice movement. So basically it goes on. In contrast, official story of the social justice movement is what we should swear eternal to devotion of diversity inclusion, yet practice they strive to achieve uniformity via exclusion. In recent University of California scandal is an elegant example. Its affected departments, job candidates had to write diversity inclusion statement unless candidates vigorously supported the social justice movement through word and action. Its facility never even got it to see their applications. How vigorously? To reach the next stage of review, applicants need a minimum average score of 11 on this rubric. Since a rank-and-file dogmatic ideologue would probably only score 9, this cutoff predictably causes ideological uniformity of Orwellian dimensions. That is so bizarre. I mean, that's why I want to write off these colleges completely. And they are losing relevance, every year, because instead of real thought and inquiry, you have this just like a lefty echo chamber. He says, more generally, the diversity and inclusion movement is normally devoted to the fervent anti-racism, quote unquote. In practice, however, they are the only prominent, openly racist movement I have encountered during my life in the United States. Nowadays, they routinely mock and dismiss critics for the color of their skin. Then they accuse those they mock and dismiss of white fragility. Just one prominent recent case. Signatories, many of them are white, wealthy, and endowed with massive platforms, argue that they are afraid of being silenced. That so-called cancel culture is out of control, and then they fear for their jobs and free exchange of ideas, even as they speak from one of the most prestigious magazines in the country. All right, 2. Diversity and inclusion movement doesn't just bizarrely redefine racism as, prejudice plus power. Since their movement combines explicit racial prejudice with great power, they neatly fit their own newspeak definition. This is 100% right. There's them redefining the word racism. That should be a huge red flag. That they are committing racism, because racism is a very simple word. Everybody knows what it is. So just redefining it as oh no, we can't be racist to white people because we don't have the power or whatever. Which completely, I mean, if you go to all these major institutions, their ideology is the one that has the power. Well, while we're on the subject of be kind to all, let me point out that making harsh, ill-informed acquisitions against any large unselective group, such as race, gender, age bracket, is the opposite of kind. Yet social justice movement hasn't just heaped collective guilt on whites, males, and the old. It has heaped scorn on even mild pushback, like not all men are sexist. Basic kindness, in contrast, enjoins you to calmly investigate the validity of your accusations before voicing them, and B, carefully distinguish between misunderstandings and malice. C, reassure innocent bystanders before you call them demonstrably guilty. But the social justice movement is basically, I mean, at its purest form, they see some group being wronged, and now they're trying to punish the supposed, not as supposed wrongdoers, but like the descendants of wrongdoers. So yes, they have to openly use racism and openly bigotry and to somehow uplift the people that have been pushed back or being the racism was used against them. And another completely Orwellian thing is their supposed goal is to have a race neutral society where race is not a big deal, like your eye color or hair color. Yet there's such intense focus on race, it ensures it like that will never go away. Or race is, their focus makes race the most important thing possible. Here's another one that's a good point. 6, quote unquote, science is real, would also bring a grim to a smile to Orwell's face. The diversity and inclusion movement shows near zero patience for a pile of scientific research that estimates share of group performance gaps that stem from discrimination versus other facts. Instead, they A, ignore the science, B, speak as if science shows the share is 100%, and treat people who discuss the actual science if they're personally guilty of discrimination. The same goes for any unwelcome scientific conclusion about gender, sexuality, academic performance. Either embrace the foregone conclusion of, quote, social justice or risk the wrath of the movement just beneath the propagandized uniformity via exclusion. He's 100% right with that. 8, it's all true, however. I'm not too scared of the big brother to write. Tenure is a big part of it. The official point of tenure is to make professors feel free to voice unpopular truth. And while I'm all about unpopular truth, still I'm no martyr. If I were looking for an academic job, I would shut up. I hope many tenure-seeking readers feel the same, yearning to voice unpopular truths with impunity, although I fear your numbers are few. What's the least Orwellian feature of the social justice movement? Support for illegal immigrants, of course. So Brian Kaplan has written and did a lot of speeches about his support for immigration, any type of immigration. He wants to open up the borders. So he sees that one redeeming feature of the social justice movement is their acceptance of immigrants. However, yet even here, they have doublespeak. On one hand, they accept the new immigrants because they're brown, but the immigrants of yesterday, well, they're on stolen land. So why do you want more people come to, take up, reside on stolen land? If you really believe the land belongs to some original, Indians or something like that, wouldn't you want to restore that and actually stop immigration? Okay, so here's the meta question. Why do Orwellian movements exist at all? Why don't each movement say what it means? It means what it says. Marketing is the easy answer. When your true goals are awful, you report to deceptively pleasant packaging to keep forward momentum. While this story makes sense, it's incomplete. The most Orwellian movements actively reveal in the contrarian between word and deed, and even in the contrarian between word and word. The best explanation is the submission to an Orwellian creed is grade A loyalty test. Insisting that all of your members admit the sky is blue doesn't weed out the doubters and the fair weather soldiers. Insisting that all your members admit that the sky is green or there is no sky, in contrast, selects for fanatics and yes folk. And sadly, those are the sorts of people movements like diversity and inclusion appreciate. Social justice, of course, is a selective movement. You can disaffiliate anytime you like, and if you don't want to be blamed for the poor behavior of your compatriots, you should.